Hi, we are now going to be starting class number 8. This is the class that you should be watching at your regular class time on September 28th. Again, you can watch it any time before September 30th, which is going to be our next live class. This is a recorded class. You're going to be seeing it on YouTube, but the next class on Thursday, September 30th, will be a regular live Zoom class as we've been having on a regular basis. This is the same type of situation that we had for class number 6, which was last Tuesday, September 21st. Today's class is basically a review. We're going to be reviewing the type of questions you're going to be seeing on your first test. After you've seen this, you can then go to Delta Math and you will find test number 1 for the term on Delta Math. There will be a total of 10 questions. I'm going to be reviewing the type of questions you're going to be seeing on Delta Math. Each question you will be given two tries. So if you get it wrong, it'll say you got it wrong. You can try it again. So that's going to be our first test. Again, you can do it immediately after this class. Remember to have it completed though by next Tuesday. I think that date is the 5th of October, if I'm correct. So let's get started. What I'm going to do first is review the questions that I gave you as homework from the class, the 5 questions that you were supposed to send in to me for class number 6. So I'm going to review those questions. A lot of people have sent in the work. Anybody who sends it in after today's date, it'll be marked late. It will be accepted, but it will be not get full credit. Okay, so the first question that I had given you there was to write the equation of a line through the points 1, -6, and 4, 0. So remember, these questions were basically on writing equations of lines, and this is one of the types of questions they asked us. And we know that when we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing something in the y equals mx plus b form. We're going to want to find the slope, the m, and we're going to then want to find the b. Remember, we concentrate on the slope first, and since we were given 2 points, we can use the slope formula, which is, let's call this our x1, y1, and this our x2, y2. And remember, the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So it would be 0 minus -6 for our y is on top, and 4 minus 1 for our x's. Now, 0, remember when you have 2 negatives, a minus and a minus becomes a plus, so our numerator becomes 0 plus 6, which is 6. Our denominator is 4 minus 1, which is 3. So in simplest form, our slope becomes 2. Again, if you were going to be using this to graph, you would call it 2 over 1, but when you're putting it in the equation, it's fine just to put in the 2. So my equation is going to be y equals 2x plus b. In order to find the b, we take either one of the points, it could be the 4, 0, it could be the 1, -6, and put it into the equation. Now the 4, 0 to me looks easier because all the numbers there are positive, but it doesn't make a difference. You'll get the same answer either way. I'll put the 4 for the x, and I'll put the 0 for the y, which will give me 0 equals 2 times 4 plus b. So 0 equals 8 plus b. And to get the b alone, I'm going to bring the 8 to the other side. So therefore, it'll give me that the b is equal to -8. And therefore, the correct answer to this question is y equals 2x minus 8. Again, you should be checking your answers because you should have done this on, and you probably have copies of what you did. Check if this is the answer. The mark you're going to get for sending that in is going to be, you get 100% for sending it in, whether your answers were right or wrong. It was not a test, it was a homework. It was a matter of did you send it in. Again, anybody who sends it in late is going to get a reduced mark. The only thing you had to do was send it in on time. Okay, so our next question, I'm going to erase this so I can go on to the next question. Was again a question about finding the equation of a line. In this case, the question was, we wanted the line to go through the point -2, 5 and be perpendicular to the line 3y plus x equals 7. Now, we know when we have lines that are perpendicular, what we want to do is, it's giving us information about the slope of the line. We know that perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite and reciprocals. So if I can figure out the slope of this line, let's call this line 1, then we'll be able to figure out the slope of our line, which is going to be line 2. And that's the equation, and that'll help us find the equation. So in order to find the slope of this line, we have to, this is not in the y equals mx plus b form. I can't just say, oh, the number in front of the x, there's a 1 there, so that must be the slope. No, it has to be y equals before I can find the slope. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring the x to the other side. So I get 3y equals -x plus 7. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3 so that I get the equation y equals -x over 3 plus 7 over 3. Now remember, for this, all I'm interested in finding is the slope of this line, which means I have to find the coefficient of the x. What's in front of the x? Now, in front of the x, there's a minus. Now, we understand that when there's no number, there must be a 1. But there also is this 3. In other words, what's attached to the x, what is the coefficient of the x? What's in front of the x is -1 over 3. Even though there was no 1 there, it was understood. And because there was a 3 in the denominator, that's part of the coefficient. Which means for line number 2, our perpendicular line, its slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal of this number. It's going to be this number flipped and the opposite sign. So flipping it over is going to give me 3 over 1, or just 3. And since this was negative, this is going to be positive. It's going to be a positive 3/1, which we can just write as 3. So for our perpendicular line, we already know that y equals 3x plus b. Here's our y equals mx plus b. Our m in this case, we've already found out, because the lines are perpendicular, its slope must be 3. Now I can go to this point. I know one of the points on the line, and I only know one point, so I've got to use that one, is the point -2, 5, which means wherever I have my x, I'm going to put a -2. Wherever I have my y, I'm going to put a 5. And that's going to give me 5 equals 3 times -2, which is -6, plus b. I'll bring the 6 to the other side. I'll change its sign because I'm bringing it to the other side. So that'll give me b equals 11. So now I know what the slope of the equation of my perpendicular line is. It's y equals 3x plus 11. So that is the answer to question number 2 that I had given you on the video for September 21st. Okay, we're now going on to question number 3. And I'm going to erase this and we'll go on to question number 3. Question number 3 was, find the equation of the line parallel to the x-axis and having a y-intercept of 6. So I'm going to draw this so we'll see exactly what we're talking about. Here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis. The y-intercept being 6 means I have to go up 6 on the y-axis. So here you are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we want a line through this point parallel to the x-axis. This is the line that we're looking for the equation of. Another way of describing that line would have been to say a horizontal line going through 6 on the y-axis. Parallel to the x-axis means it's horizontal. And we know when we have horizontal lines, the equation is always y equals a number. When you have a horizontal line, you're not going to have any x in that equation. You're just going to have y. And we know what the y is. The y has to be 6 because these are all 6 above the x-axis. So our answer to that equation is y equals 6. That was question number 3. Okay, and we had 2 more questions. Okay, let's go through those last 2 questions. Remember, if you want to go back, you can always pause the video and go back and watch it again. Question number 4 was this question. You're given g of x equaling 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. And the question was, find g of -2. And we know that this is using functional notation. And whenever we're asked to find g of x, we know whatever, since it's g of -2 that we want to find, we're going to take wherever we have an x, replace it with a parentheses, and in that parentheses, we're going to put the -2. In other words, this is going to be 2 times parentheses squared. Here's my x, minus 5 times parentheses. Again, here's my x, plus 3. And in that parentheses, I'm going to put whatever is over here, which in this case is -2. Now, of course, you could just stick this whole thing, if you wanted to, in your calculator, because you are allowed to use your calculators. Just make sure to put in the parentheses. Put, for example, within 2, then put your parentheses, put in -2, close your parentheses, and then put the squared. Don't forget to close the parentheses before you square. Now I'm going to do this by hand. And remember, exponents go first, so I first have to do -2 squared. So -2 times -2 is +4. So I have to multiply this +4 by 2, which is going to give me 8 for this first term. Then I have -5 times -2, so that's going to be +10. And then it's going to be +3. So that when I add all these together, 8 and 10 and 3, that's 18 plus 3, my final answer is 21. When the x is replaced by some particular number, your answer is going to come out to be a number. Now, number 5 was also a question about functional notation. I gave you this question. Suppose I told you that h of x is 7x minus 5. Remember, h of x, g of x are just different names for y. It's easier when you use this functional notation because it's easy to distinguish between your different functions. In this case, we were calling it the function g, and we were looking for g of -2. In my last question, I'm calling my function h. This is h of x is 7x minus 3. And the question was to find h of 3a plus 1. Now notice, in this case, I don't get to have a specific number that I'm putting there. I'm putting a whole algebraic expression with a's in it. My final answer will be in terms of a. It will not be in terms of a number. There'll have to be an a in it. And what this tells you to do is exactly what we did before. Take wherever you have an x and put a parenthesis there. This is going to be 7. Here's your x minus 5. What are we going to fill in that parentheses with? We're now going to fill in that parentheses with 3a plus 1, because that's what I'm asking you to find. Find h of 3a plus 1. So in place of my x, I've taken out the x and replaced it with 3a plus 1. Now this thing looks like it could be simplified. So I'm going to simplify it by using the distributive property. This is going to give me 21a plus 7. And here's my minus 5. And I can combine the 7 and the minus 5 so that my final answer comes out to be 21a plus 2. And this is your answer. Notice, don't go and then try to solve this. This is not an equation. Your answer should come out in terms of a expression, an algebraic expression with a. Okay, so this takes care of the type of question, the exact questions that have been given for you as homework from class number 6. This was which was a review of writing linear equations, writing equations of lines, and also a review of using functional notation. Now, you have to know this is going to be helpful in terms of your quiz or test that's coming up on Delta Math as well. What I'm going to do is go back to because the test is going to be on both chapters 1 and 2. I'm now going to review some of the questions you might have forgotten about. Let's review all the type of things we have learned in both chapter 1 and 2, so that when you go to your test 1 on Delta Math, you'll be prepared for each type of question. Okay, so I'm going to, don't forget, some of the questions we've already reviewed by doing these. As we go through, as I said, they're going to be 10 questions, and I'm basically doing the questions in the order that you're going to find them on the test, so that you can review these, and then you can, after you've reviewed these, again, you can go and try and do your tests. Okay, so the first question is just solve an equation. And this is just a matter of reminding ourselves this is review material. Suppose I had -5 times parentheses x minus 1 minus x plus 1 equaling -18. And we want to solve this. Remember, when we want to solve this, as whenever we solve a linear equation, we want to get all the x's to one side, all the numbers on the other side. We want to make sure to combine terms before we do that. And of course, the first thing we're going to do is use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. So this is going to be -5x. And now we have a -5 times a -1, which will be a +5 minus x plus 1 equals -18. Combining like terms here is a -5x and a -1x. Remember, there's no number in front of it, so it's a 1. -5 and -1 is -6x. The +5 and the +1 give me +6 equals -18. I'm now going to bring this 6 to the other side because I want to get the x's alone. So we get -6x equals -24. Divide everything by -6. And my answer is x equals 4. Now remember, when you're doing this on Delta Math, when you're solving an equation, all you have to give is the answer. Don't write x equal, just write 4. The answer here is 4, just write 4. That is all that would be required of you. Okay. Now, going on to another type of question. This again is also a solving of an equation. In this case, we want to solve this equation. 14 equals 8/3 times x plus 6. And the question is, what do we do when we have a fraction in our equation? We've done a few of these, and I'm just going to remind you that one of the best ways to deal with equations that have fractions in them is to try and get rid of the fractions by multiplying by what we call the common denominator. Now, over here, it's a 14, which is really a 14/1. And this is an 8/3. We'll worry about it, this part. Let's first worry about this 8/3 and the 14/1. Obviously, the common denominator between 1 and, well, I really should put this over 1 as well. Common denominator between 1 and 3 is 3. I'm going to take that 3, my common denominator, and put it over 1. I multiply the whole equation through the common denominator, which means I'm going to take the 3/1 and multiply it by 14/1. And I'm gonna multiply it on the other side also. I'm gonna do the 3/1 times the 8/3 times the x plus 6/1. Remember, I'm not distributing this. This is not, there's no addition here, so I just put it next to it. And now I'm going to do this multiplication. First of all, here, there's nothing to cancel out. I just have to multiply the 3 times the 14, which will give me 42/1. Over here, on the other side, I have a 3 in the denominator that's going to cancel out with this 3 in the numerator. This 3 and this 3 cancel out, and this just leaves me 8/1. And now times the x plus 6/1. Now, actually, now that everything is over 1, I don't even have to put those 1s in. So essentially what this is saying is 42 equals 8 times x plus 6. If you notice, by just multiplying, I know it took a lot of steps, but if you just thought about it, if you multiply by the 3, it gets rid of your denominator of 3, and then everything becomes just a regular equation without fractions. Now we go back to our regular steps. This is 42 equals 8x plus 48, because I'm using the distributive property because there's a plus in here. I'm going to subtract the 48 from both sides. And that's going to give me 42 minus 48, which is -6 equals 8x. Okay, I'm going to go over here now. I have my -6 equals 8x. In order to find out what x is, I'm going to have to divide everything by 8. Now, they usually tell you when your answer comes out as a fraction, they want you to give the answer in simplest form or reduced form. And you can divide the top and bottom by 2. So this will give you that x is equal to -3/4. When you're doing this and you're trying to enter this on Delta Math, again, your answer, you just put in the number, but what you would do is -3, and then use your / and then 4, and it'll right away come out as a fraction. So that's your answer. Answer is -3/4. Okay. So now let's go on to inequalities. Question number 3. Suppose you're asked to solve and graph (5 plus 3x is greater than or equal to 14). Now remember, this is an inequality. It's greater than or equal. And whenever we're solving an inequality, we want to make sure to be left with the x's on our left, the numbers on the right. Again, the first thing I'm going to do is bring the 5 to the other side. So this will give me 3x is greater than or equal to 9. And now I have to divide by 3. Now, this is where you have to be careful. If the number you're dividing by is positive, you leave the direction of the inequality the way it was. If the number in front of the x is negative, if you're dividing by a negative number, you switch the direction of the inequality. In this case, we don't have to switch. We just get as our answer x is greater than or equal to 3. Now, how are you asked to give the answer? Sometimes you're told just to solve it, so therefore all you'd have to do is this. Sometimes you're told to solve it and give your answer on the number line. Now remember, on the number line, here's what it would look like. You go to the 3, and this is how you do it in Delta Math. You click on the 3, and then you drag to the right, because you know this is going to the right, the arrow is pointing to the right. Now, at 3, you have to look at it. It has to be a filled-in circle. If it already is a filled-in circle, that's fine, just leave it that way. If it's an open circle, then you click on it and it'll turn into filled-in circle. Like, I don't remember if the default is a filled-in circle. I think the default is a filled-in circle. But if it comes out as an open circle and you want it filled in, again, all you have to do is with your cursor, click on it, and it will change from filled in to open, or from open to filled in. That's how you switch from one to the other. In case you're asked to put your answer in interval notation, again, you might be asked on the question to put it in the graph. It might be asked just to solve it. You might be asked to put it in interval notation. All 3 are methods of giving the answer. In interval notation, remember, you always start at the left and work your way to the right. The leftmost point on this interval that we're interested in is 3, comma. It's going all the way to the right, which we write as a positive infinity. Remembering at the infinity sign, whether it's positive or negative, we always put a regular parentheses. At the 3, we have to look. If it's a filled-in circle, we make it a bracket, which it is in this case. If this would have been an open circle, because this would have been just a greater than, then we would have made it as a regular parentheses. So in interval notation, you would, and this you can just type in. This is easy to type in from your keyboard. You type in the bracket, you put in the 3, the comma, then the infinity is always going to be on they're going to give you that choice as that symbol, and then you're going to put a regular parentheses. So that's how you solve a regular regular inequality. Solving a regular inequality, graphing it, and putting it on the number line. Okay. What about question number 4? Question number 4 is a question about a compound inequality. A compound inequality is sometimes called a double inequality. Will look something like this: negative 18 less than or equal to 2x plus 4 is less than 6. This is a compound inequality where you're really doing 2 inequalities at once. This is literally telling you that one inequality you have is negative 18 is less than 2x plus 4. And the second inequality you have is that the 2x plus 4 is less than 6. Both of these things are happening at the same exact time. So we put it as a double inequality. We always put it in such a way that the lowest number is on the left, the larger number is on the right, and the signs that you see are going to be either less than, regular less than, or less than or equal to, because you want these numbers to appear the same way they would appear on a number line. Now, when you're going to solve this, what you want to end up with is just a plain X in the middle. So always focus on what's going on in the middle. the first thing I see is a +4. So I'm going to subtract this +4. Now, whatever I do in the middle, I have to do on the left end and on the right end. In other words, I'm doing two questions at once. The -18 and the -24 combine to -22. Here the 4 cancels out, so I'm left with less than or equal to 2x. And here I have less than, and this is a 6 minus 4, which is 2. I'm almost finished, but I don't want a 2x in the middle. I want just a plain x, so I'm going to divide by 2 because that's the coefficient of the x. But again, what I do on the middle, I do at either end, both on the left side and the right side. So over here I get negative, and now notice I'm dividing by a positive number, so I'm not changing directions of inequalities. -22 divided by 2 is -11. This is less than or equal to x, which is less than 1. And this is, once you have plain x in the middle, then you have solved your inequality. You solved your compound inequality. Now, sometimes they want you to graph this inequality. So how would it look like on the graph? So let's go, we go to -11, -1, -2, -3, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Here's -11, and here's 1. So those are the two important numbers that I want to get to. The -11, it says less than or equal to, which means that would be a filled in circle. At the 1, it's just a less than sign, so that would be an open circle. And then you fill in everything in between. That's what this is saying, that the x is between -11, including the -11, and the 1. It doesn't include the 1. If you're doing this on Delta Math, you click on the -11, you then drag until you, and then click on the 1. Now, if they don't turn out, if this turns out to be an open circle, you click it again and it'll become a closed circle. If this came out to be a closed circle, then, and you want it to be an open circle, you click on it and it turns into an open circle. But first you have to drag from one end to the other. If you're asked to do this in interval notation, then again, we take the number that's all the way on the left side, which is -11, and we go all the way to the number on the right side, which is 1. In this case, it's not going all the way to infinity, it's stopping at 1. Since at -11, it was a filled-in circle, that would require a brackets, but the 1 is an open circle, so that would require a parentheses. So here's the answer as a inequality. Here's what it looks like on the number line, and here's what it looks like in interval notation. Basically, in each case, the important things you have to look for is the -11 on the left and the 1 on the right. Okay, so now let's go on to question number 5. Question number 5 is a solve of an absolute value equation. This is number 5, solving absolute value equations. We're asked to solve the equation 8 plus the absolute value of 6 minus 4x plus absolute values equals 17. Okay, so let's reminder, this was the end of chapter 1, solving absolute value equations. So the first thing you have to do is get your absolute value all alone. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, which will leave me the absolute value of 6 minus 4x equals 17 minus 8, which is 9. Once I have the absolute value by itself, I look at the number on the other side. If that number happens to be a negative number, I stop right here. I can't go any further because that has no solution. This number always has to be a positive number because the absolute value is always a positive number. Well, it is a positive number, so I can go further. If it's a positive number, then I break it up into two equations. One equation becomes the 6 minus 4x equals 9. And the second equation becomes the 6 minus 4x equals negative 9. You have to end up with two answers. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, which will give me negative 4x equals 3, and divide by negative 4. So answer number 1 is negative 4 3/4. Over here, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides again. This will give me negative 4x equals negative 15. And I'll divide by negative 4. Now in this case, I get a negative 15 over a negative 4, so my answer becomes positive 15 over 4. They want you to leave your answers in this format. You put in your first one, negative 3/4, comma, then put in your second answer, 15/4. Otherwise, you'll see on the total right side, bottom right side, where there's a little place where there's a plus there. If you press on that plus, it'll give you place to put in a second answer. So either use the comma or go and use this little, there's all the way at the bottom, a plus and a minus. When you click on the plus, it allows you to put in a second answer, and you must put in both answers to get this question correct. Okay, now question number 6 out of the 10 is going to be a question about about writing the equation of a line that's either horizontal or vertical. Remember, just as a reminder, let's say I have a line through the point, let's say this is the point 5, 3. 5 to the right, 3 up. If I ask you about a horizontal line through that point, your answer, remember, horizontal lines always have equations y equal a number. In this case, the number would be y equals 3. If you're asked for a vertical line, that's a line that goes straight up and down, that's always an equation that has an x equal, and in this case, it would be x equal to 5, because that's what we see here. Don't forget, horizontal lines have a slope equal to 0, and the vertical lines have slopes that are undefined, that don't exist. Okay, that's just, so that would be question number 6. Question number 7 is, I'm going to ask you to find the slope of a line. Suppose I gave you these 2 points, -2, -5, and -3, -6. Remember how we find the slope? We use the slope formula, y2 equals y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's call this our x1, y1, and this our x2, y2, and we'll just stick it in. -6 minus -5. Be very careful. It's minus a -5 because the y1 is actually negative over x2, which is -3, minus -2. And you could stick this into your calculator, but if you're doing it in your calculator, do the numerator separately, get an answer, do the denominator separately. Remembering, I'm not doing it with my calculator. I have two negatives here, a negative minus a -5, so that's going to turn into a positive. So this will end up to being -6 plus 5, which is a -1. In the denominator, again, have this two negatives, a negative and -2, which becomes a +2. And -3 plus 2, again, is -1. And if I reduce this, a negative of 1 over -1 is just 1. The slope of this line is 1. We also, just like we did for question number 1 on the homework from class 6, we could then find the equation of the line from the 2 points. I'm not doing that again because we just did something like that. But question number 8 will be a question about finding the equation of a line given 2 points. Now, question number 9. We said number 8 is finding the equation of a line from 2 points. That would be question number 8. Again, similar to the question number 1 on the homework that you were supposed to submit. Question number 9 is a question about writing the equation of a line where it's either parallel or perpendicular to a given line. We did something like that again on the homework. Question number 2, it was a question about finding the equation of a line that's perpendicular to a given line. So let's do one that involves finding the equation of a line that's parallel. So let's say my point that I wanted to go through is the point -6, -2, and I want it to be parallel to the line 3x minus 2y equals 2. Now, if you recall, when we talked about lines that are parallel, the important thing to remember is that when lines are parallel, they have the exact same slope. When they're perpendicular, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. We did one like that. But parallel lines means the slopes are identical. So if I want to find the slope, this is my line number 1. I'm looking for an equation of the line number 2. In order to find the slope of the line that I want to write the equation for, I have to really know the slope of this original line that they talked about. Now, this is not in the y equals mx plus b form. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to bring the 3x to the other side, which will give me -2y equals -3x plus 2. And then I'll divide everything by -2. So that in simplest form, the line that they gave me is, well, a negative of a negative is positive 3/2 x minus 1, because 2 divided by -2 is -1. Now, what I'm interested in is this coefficient of the x, the number in front of the x. We want the slope. The slope of this line is 3/2. So when I go to write this equation of the line that I'm interested in writing, the line that's parallel to this line, But going through this point, I know it's gonna be y equals mx. Well, my m, I know already, it's 3/2x plus b. What I still have to figure out is what is the b. The m has to be 3/2 because in order for the two lines to be parallel, they have to have the same slope. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to take the point that they told me is going to be on the line and fit it into this equation. The -6, we're going to put in place of the x. The -2, we're going to put in place of the y. So this will turn out to be -2 equals 3/2 times -6 plus b. Now, in order to multiply the fraction, let's make this a -6/1. And remember that the 2 in the denominator cancels into this -6. So the 2 goes into the -6 and gives me -3. So this ends up being -2 equals, well, now it's 3 times -3. Everything's 1 on the bottom, so that's a -9 plus b. So the only hard part is multiplying the 3/2 times the -6. Again, if you want, you could just do it using your calculator. Okay, now I want to get the b alone, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides, which will give me b equaling 7. So the answer to this, to my question, here's my final answer, is y equals 3/2x plus 7. Notice these two lines are certainly parallel because they have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. That's what makes them parallel. Okay, again, question number 10 sometimes may be a question about parallel lines or perpendicular lines. And that was question number 9, I'm sorry. And question number 10 is going to be about evaluating functions, like the last two questions that we did on the homework from last Tuesday. The questions number 4 and 5 were questions about evaluating functions. Okay, so that should take you to all the types of questions. There are going to be 10 questions. There are 10 questions on this Delta Math test. Again, you can do it immediately after, or you can do any time. It has to be completed by next Tuesday morning. So, or Monday evening would be better. Don't leave it for the last minute. I think this was a review of its 10 questions. That is your first test on Delta Math. It's including all the material that we had done on classes on chapters 1 and 2. We are currently in the middle of chapter 3, which we will complete on Thursday. We will have regular class on Thursday, September 30th. Okay, so have a good day, and I will look forward to seeing you on Thursday.